our neurologist made this like miracle appointment happen for us to get into a geneticist immediately, which obviously meant that he was extremely concerned about our daughter and he was going to help us get some answers. So I took my daughter to go see a geneticist. My husband had just taken work off the week prior to go see the neurologist, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, I had the time and the ability to go to this appointment, just Poppy and I. Just FYI, you guys, if you ever go to a geneticist, I would recommend both parents go. That was a mistake my husband and I made. The first part of a genetics appointment is you meet with a genetic counselor. You guys, if you love like gossip or learning about families, I would say being a genetic counselor would be a good job for you because they find out every detail about a family's history. So I remember I spoke with this genetic counselor for like an hour and a half. I was holding Poppy, feeding her her bottle, and I just went over every detail of our family history that I could think of. My side of the family, my husband's side of the family. If you're in my family, I probably answered some weird question about you. But after that, we finally meet with the official doctor, the geneticist. She came in, she was so sweet, she loved Poppy. Poppy had been in so many appointments at this point. I feel like she knew what to expect. So, you know, Poppy's like in her diaper, laying on the crinkle paper, her arms up by her side, and she's just as cute as can be. She really liked the crinkle paper on the table. So the geneticist then did a full, thorough physical exam on Poppy. A lot of times with your DNA, your DNA is your genetic makeup. And so a lot of times if there's a flaw within the DNA, it is shown externally in some capacity. And so she was looking to see if Poppy had any physical characteristics that tied in with a gene mutation. You know, I think she also wanted to see what type of children my husband and I make. And so she had me pull up baby photos of my other kids to see what a typical looking child of ours looked like. Turns out Poppy looked just like her siblings. You know, there was no physical characteristic that this geneticist could see that tied in with like her knowledge of a gene mutation. Like there was nothing physically obvious about Poppy that she had something wrong with her DNA. Because again, this appointment was so thorough. Again, I also think they asked about the development of our two oldest, Rizzy and Peter, and what their developmental stages looked like. You know, what was typical for our family genes versus how Poppy was different. I remember asking this doctor if she had any idea of what could be causing this in Poppy. I was like desperate. I wanted her to at least give me a direction for my Google searches that I was doing every night. And I remember so distinctly she said that she wasn't sure, but she also didn't want to make any guesses because she didn't want to scare me. And she wasn't saying that as like a threat or even a warning. She was saying it in a very gentle way. I remember thinking like, you can't scare me. Again, I wasn't thinking like a fatal diagnosis was even like a possibility. So, but I so distinctly remember her saying that. So she let me know that she also was, though, very concerned about Poppy and that she wanted to send off her DNA to do a whole genome sequence test, I believe is what it's called. So the last DNA test we did just looked at the chromosomes. Do you guys remember my chart? Okay, so the last DNA test just looked at the chromosomes, but within each chromosome, it's made up of thousands of genes. And so this test was going to look at each individual gene. But in order to do this test, it wasn't just a test that they had to do on Poppy's DNA. They also needed my DNA and my husband's DNA. But remember, my husband wasn't with me at the appointment, so that was a bit of an issue. Did like a cheek swab for Poppy. I think I had to do a spit test is what it was, into like a little vial. I had to sign a bunch of forms saying that they could test both of our DNA. And then that evening after work, my husband had to drive over to the Children's Hospital, and they squeezed him for a little appointment so he could also give his DNA and that he could sign all of the forms himself. And they got it sent off immediately that next day. They told us that the results would take about 3 months on average, but it can take up to 5 months. They just weren't sure. And so we were very much prepared to just kind of sit in a waiting game for the next few months. But to our surprise, we got a call 3 weeks later that the geneticist wanted to see us immediately again.